All right, today we're going to talk about something that affects pretty much everyone, every single day, whether you're thinking about it or not, and that's inflation. Let's get right into what it is, and more importantly, why you should care.
You know that feeling, right? You get your paycheck, you pay the rent, you buy groceries, and somehow it just feels like there's less money left over than there was last month or last year, even when you're making the same amount of money. It's a super common and honestly pretty frustrating feeling.
Well, there's a name for that feeling, and it's inflation. Think of it like this invisible force that's just silently eating away at the value of your money. It's kind of like a slow leak in a tire. You don't notice it right away, but over time, it definitely leaves you flat. So we're going to break down what's happening and what you can actually do about it. So first things first, before we can talk about fighting it, we really have to get a handle on what it is. So let's zoom in on this idea of the shrinking dollar. What are we really talking about when we say inflation? You know, at its core, it's actually a pretty simple idea. Inflation just means that, on average, the prices for all the stuff we buy, food, gas, clothes, housing, are going up. And as those prices go up, the power of your money goes down. Each and every dollar you have simply buys you less than it used to. Let's make this super tangible. Imagine a gallon of milk costs $3 today. Well, if there's 10% inflation, next year that exact same gallon of milk is going to cost you $3.30. It's the same milk in the same jug, but your dollar just doesn't go as far.
And really, that's the bottom line. That's the whole shebang. It's this shrinking dollar effect. You can have the exact same number of bills in your wallet, but what they can actually get you in the real world has gone down.
Okay, so that's the what. But what about the why? I mean, why does this even happen? What are the big forces behind the scenes that actually cause prices to creep up in the first place? Well, economists usually break it down into three main buckets. First, there's what they call demand pull. That's the classic too much money chasing too few goods. Basically, everyone's trying to buy stuff, but there isn't enough to go around, so prices get bid up. Then you have cost push. That's when it gets more expensive to make things. Maybe oil prices go up or wages rise. Well, companies aren't just going to eat that cost. They pass it on to you, the customer. And third, there's monetary inflation, which is when the total supply of money in the economy grows, making every dollar out there just a little less scarce, and therefore a little less valuable.
So how do we even know what the inflation rate is? Well, the most common yardstick is something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. All it is, really, is a big theoretical shopping basket. Government agencies fill it with hundreds of common things people buy, like groceries, gas for the car, rent, doctor's visits. And then they track how the total price of that basket changes from month to month and year to year. So when you hear on the news that inflation is, say, 3%, it just means the price of that whole basket went up by 3% compared to last year. And fun fact, most central banks, like the US Federal Reserve, actually aim for about 2% inflation, because they see it as a sign of a healthy, growing economy.
Okay, now we're getting to the part that really matters to all of us. We've talked about the what and the why. Now let's talk about how this all directly slams into your personal finances, your savings account, any debt you have, and of course, your paycheck.
To really get this, we have to understand two different kinds of value. First, there's nominal value. That's just the number on the bill. A $20 bill is a $20 bill. Simple. But what really matters is the real value. And that's all about what that $20 bill can actually buy you once you factor in rising prices. That's your true purchasing power.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. Let's say you work hard all year and you get a 2% raise. Awesome, right? Feels like a win. But if inflation that year was 3%, you're actually worse off. Your real income, your actual purchasing power, has gone down by 1%. You're taking home more dollars, but those dollars buy you less stuff. It's a tough pill to swallow.
And the danger here is that this isn't a one-time hit. It compounds over time. Even what seems like a small inflation rate, say 3%, really adds up. If you have $100 today, in just 5 years, it'll only have the buying power of about $86. Wait a decade, and that same $100 is effectively worth only $74. It's this slow, quiet erosion of your wealth if you just let your money sit there.
So let's just recap the big impacts. 1, your savings lose value if they're not earning interest at a rate higher than inflation. 2, your income buys less, just like we talked about with that raise example. But 3, and this is a weird twist, inflation can actually make some kinds of debt cheaper to pay back. Why? Because you're paying off your old loans with new, future dollars that are worth less than the ones you originally borrowed. Now, I know this can all sound a little depressing, but here's the good news. You are absolutely not powerless against this. There are real, concrete steps you can take to protect your money. So let's pivot and talk about solutions. How do you make your money work harder for you?
When you boil it all down, the goal is actually super simple. It's a race. And to win, your money needs to be growing faster than prices are rising. That's it. That's the whole game. If your money's growth rate is higher than the inflation rate, you're not just surviving, you're actually increasing your purchasing power.
So, how do we do that? What's the playbook? Well, there are a few proven strategies. One is investing in things like stocks or funds that track the market, which over the long haul have historically grown faster than inflation. Another is owning real assets like real estate, since property values often rise with inflation. For your cash that you need to keep safe, using a high-yield savings account can at least help fight some of the damage. And finally, one of the best investments you can make is in yourself. Growing your skills to increase your income potential gives you more firepower to stay ahead of rising costs.
A really simple way to think about structuring all this is to just split your money up based on its job. For any money you might need in a pinch, your emergency fund, the priority is safety and quick access, so a savings account makes sense. But for your long-term goals, stuff like retirement, that money has to be invested so it has a fighting chance to actually grow and outpace inflation over the years.
I love this quote because it just nails it. Inflation is the silent tax on your money. It's perfect, right? Because unlike other taxes, nobody sends you a bill. It just happens. Quietly, in the background, taking a little piece of your wealth every single day.
And if there's only one thing you remember from this whole discussion, let it be this. In a world with inflation, letting your money just sit still in cash is a guaranteed way to lose. Doing nothing is actually a financial decision, and over time, it's a losing one.
So we'll leave you with a question to think about. Knowing for a fact that your money is losing its buying power every single day that it just sits there, what's your next move going to be?